Is Dragon Ball GT that bad? It always seems to get so much hate. A lot of it unwarranted in my opinion, but I just don't get why it is claimed to be so bad. Please don't forget to leave a like and subscribe for future content like this, as this directly supports my channel. Of course, I do think it is the worst of the 4 series within the franchise, but I still love it. If I had to do a ranking of myself, I would put Dragon Ball and Dragon Ball Z at both 9.5, Dragon Ball Super at an 8.5, and Dragon Ball GT as an 8.3. But I have gone and done some digging, guys, and looked at the rating systems to see, is Dragon Ball GT really that bad? Is it universally hated? Is it unfairly critiqued? I also combine this with my many thousands of comments that I have received and read on this channel, and the knowledge that I have gained from them. So the first thing that I decided to look at is myanimelist.com. I know it is one of the most popular anime ratings sites, and it is something that I have been somewhat using myself the past 2 years. Now, of course, this system is not going to be perfect for rating. There's nothing to keep people that haven't even seen the series from reviewing it. Yes, people can just claim they've seen it, and they've seen some of it or all of it, but there's no way of knowing if they really have. So this is in no way the best way to get a ranking, but we will just run with it anyways. So let's go over both the show's actual review rating and its popularity. In terms of rating, the lowest rating is Dragon Ball GT at a 6.7, Dragon Ball Super is at a 7.7 in third place, Dragon Ball at an 8.2 in second place, and of course at first place is Dragon Ball Z with an 8.3 rating. Now when it comes to just a popularity ranking, Dragon Ball Super is the least popular of the 4 with a ranking of 274th, and then next at third it's GT with 206th place. Original Dragon Ball is at 99th, and finally Dragon Ball Z is the 71st most popular. So while GT is the lowest rated, it is not the least popular according to this site, which can make more sense. GT has been out for years, while Super has been only done for 6 months, and the dub is barely halfway finished. Super has the potential to become more popular than GT still. But also it can make more sense that more people just watch GT, but this led to people who disliked it more than actually people who dislike Super, which is the disparity in the ranking system. Now let's just look at the ratings number at face value. Super, Z, and OG Dragon Ball are really close together in ranking. 7.7, 8.2, and an 8.3. But GT, although it's not really in the same bunch there, it really isn't that far behind at a 6.7 rating. Now if you look at this in a bar graph, you can tell GT is the lowest, but it sure isn't that terrible, and it's seemingly far greater than thought. For all the vitriol surrounding GT, I would have assumed it would be a 5.0 score or even less. In my opinion, the 6.7 is respectable, especially when I add in the knowledge I have gained from my channel within my comment section. In my comment sections alone, I have seen hundreds to thousands of people claim that GT is terrible or bad, and many of these people haven't even seen GT. There are comments where people say GT sucks, and they say why they will never watch it. How is GT that bad if you haven't seen it? Some say they just based off of what they heard, what some YouTubers have said about it, but that's just not how you do it. Even some of the people who actually review GT have admitted they haven't finished it or watched much of GT. And also, some will claim they have seen all 64 episodes, yet in their review, it seems as if they didn't watch GT at all. It just doesn't add up. This shows they either have old memories of GT or never watched it and just are tacking on the negative reviews just to do it because that's the cool thing to do. GT is like the new prequels. When GT came out, you know, of course, nobody really thought it was as good as Dragon Ball Z. Just like when the prequels came out, nobody thought it was as good as the original trilogy, but people still loved it. And then all of a sudden, years later, it's hated. The prequels are somewhat hated now. What? Episode 3 is the best. But anyways, this does go and back up what I am seeing within my own comment section. People commenting or talking about GT saying it's bad when they haven't seen it. But like I said before, you can be wrong about why you dislike something and still dislike it. Either you look back and think if you were wrong for disliking it and then change your opinion, or you just go back and find why you really didn't like it. Because what I'm saying is there's a lot of reasons people say they dislike GT and they say bring up plot holes and blah 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 when it's not a plot hole, and that would be wrong thinking to think that. They say they dislike it for a reason, but that reason is wrong. You can still dislike it, but that just doesn't mean your reasoning is wrong. So I've actually compiled a bunch of different lists using this ranking system. I've gathered all of the Dragon Ball and Dragon Ball Z movies ranking on the same site and compare these rankings to GT's ranking. So there are 4 Dragon Ball movies and 15 Dragon Ball Z movies, which makes for 19 movies in total. I'm quickly going to read over all of the ratings of these movies by users of my anime list. Dragon Ball Movie 1, 7.0. Dragon Ball Movie 2, 6.97. Dragon Ball Movie 3, 7.04. Dragon Ball Movie 4, 7.28. DBZ Movie 1, 6.87. DBZ Movie 2, 6.82. DBZ Movie 3, 6.92. DBZ Movie 4, 6.78. DBZ Movie 5, 7.2. DBZ Movie 6, 7.02. DBZ Movie 7, 7.08. DBZ Movie 8, 7.54. DBZ Movie 9, 7.3. DBZ Movie 10, 7.03. DBZ Movie 11, 6.17. DBZ Movie 12, 7.69. Dragon Ball Z Movie 13, 7.5, Dragon Ball Z Movie 14, 7.5, and finally Dragon Ball Z Movie 15, a 7.2. Interestingly enough, not even a single movie got an 8.0 rating, which actually quite surprises me. Now, I consider a rating to be really close when it's within half of a point of each other, and relatively close when it is within a single point. When it comes to these 19 movies, 11 of them are really close within that half-point range, within GT. So 11 of these movies are comparable to GT in terms of general rating. And 18 of these 19 are within a single point of each other. The only one that has more than an entire point is movie 12, that is 1.03 higher than Dragon Ball GT. So this means in terms of the general public, GT is a very comparable rating in terms of reviews for the movie. Most of these movies have a relatively high fondness, and I don't know a single Dragon Ball or Dragon Ball Z movie that is anywhere close to being hated as much as GT is. So how are these ratings this close, and even GT being higher than some of these movies, yet GT is universally hated, quote unquote, but the Dragon Ball Z movies are not even close. There is nowhere near the vitriol within these movies by the fandom as if there is for GT. This really gives me the impression that GT just has a negative stigma, that a vocal minority is making it seem like it is much more hated than it really is. Just real quick, I want to compare a few anime to GT as well. First one is Boruto. Now I know this isn't as successful as Naruto, but it's still quite popular and isn't particularly hated, but it has a 7.0, which makes it quite close to GT's 6.7. Its popularity is ranking in the 300s, which is lower than GT. And then there's Saint Seiya Omega. Saint Seiya is a highly popular anime, but this rating has only a 6.5 and is in the 2000s popularity ranking. So GT is comparable to these two. And compared to the movies, it's quite relative to the fandom's views in terms of rating. Also, I want to talk about this quote from Herms. This is over on Kanzenshu, and he was talking about the ratings of GT. Of course, GT's ratings were lower than Z, but it really wasn't that bad. So this is a quote from Herms. When it aired in Japan, GT's ratings got steadily lower. The highest rated episode is episode 2, the lowest is 21, but the average episode rating per story arc declined from 15.1% for the Dragon Ball Hunt to 13.6% for the Evil Dragons. In contrast, Dragon Ball's average was 21.2% and Z's was 20.1%. The fact that it ended at 64 episodes compared to the long runs the Dragon Ball and Dragon Ball Z anime had is probably a sign that it didn't go over as well as Toei had hoped. GT's done better on home release in Japan, possibly because it had no cheaper manga counterpart for people to buy, instead like Dragon Ball and Dragon Ball Z, and possibly because by the time it was finally released, nostalgia had kicked in. Seems like these days GT is getting the most exposure to Dragon Ball Heroes, which is pretty popular and prominently featured many elements from GT. So again, there's some things in this showing that GT wasn't that unpopular and that bad, some things it did. But also, one thing to point out with GT's ratings in Japan, this is brought up by Geekdom 101 in his documentary on Dragon Ball GT, is that ratings dropped in the Buu saga because likely of franchise fatigue. Like Geekdom said, there was a chapter every week from 84 to 95, there was an episode every week from 86 to 97, and there was almost like 2 movies per year, not to mention video games as well. There was a lot of Dragon Ball, and Geekdom surmised that there was franchise fatigue because ratings dropped in Z, and that carried over to GT. Now add that together, GT didn't have a lot of things going for it. The dub of GT is probably the worst of the 3 dubs at the time. The first saga was also quite bad, and with the lack of huge amount of cooperation with Akira Toriyama, people probably lacked interest, and add all of that with the fact of franchise fatigue, it makes sense why GT kind of lost its popularity. In my opinion, I am sure there were many people who watched the first saga or parted way through the first saga and was just like, what the fuck? And stopped watching and gave a bad review. I know there are several people who did that in their reviews in the My Anime List review section, so the first saga will skew the ratings overall, because they're only rating the first saga, not the full series, and therefore the 6.7 would probably be in the 7 ranges if it weren't for the first saga. So the basic answer here is that no, GT isn't that bad. It isn't universally hated, and there is some unfair critiques, which I'm going to go over in a different video. I'm going to talk about a lot of the misconceptions, unfair critiques, false plot holes that people bring up about GT, and basically debunk them. Like I said, you can still dislike GT, but you might be wrong in why you dislike GT. That'll be a video for the future. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. Let me know what you guys think. Do you think GT is that bad? Do you think it's actually hated? Or do you think it's a vocal minority that is really, really dogging on GT? Now, of course, I do believe that GT is probably the lowest rated out of all the franchise. I think that is surmisable. But let me know what you guys think. Please do leave a like, comment, and subscribe. Join my Discord and follow me on Twitter. Also, guys, don't forget to go subscribe to my other channel, my other anime channel, Broku no Hero. I'll link that down below. I hope you guys all have an amazing day. Peace out.